Welcome to our audio tour of Princeton's historic campus. We have created a recording for each stop on the map. As you proceed with this video, you will be able to listen to the recording while seeing a photograph. Each entry ends with instructions on where to walk next. Simply pause the video while you proceed to the next stop. Nassau Hall. We begin this tour in the heart of campus at the very first building constructed. Nassau Hall was erected when the College of New Jersey moved from Newark to Princeton. Completed in 1756, Nassau Hall was originally built in the Georgian style. At the time, it was described as the largest building in the 13 colonies. Students spent nearly every waking hour here, eating, sleeping, learning, and praying. While the building looked grand, the bedrooms in the basement were cold and damp with water seeping through the stone walls. Window sashes in hallways were removed for better ventilation, but this meant that students faced icy blasts as they walked to the unheated chapel for prayers before breakfast. Nassau Hall's 2-foot-thick walls have withstood the American Revolution, 2 fires, and student riots, but the building has also changed over time. In 1855, after the second fire, architect John Notman rebuilt Nassau Hall in the then popular Italianate style. He preserved the original walls but added the tall campanile and fireproofed the structure through the extensive use of iron beams. Please turn to your left and walk over to the yellow Joseph Henry house.
Campus. If you look back towards Nassau Hall, you see what was originally the front campus. Few realize that the word campus, Latin for field, originated here in Princeton. Until then, the term yard had been used. There are a few theories how this new name for the college grounds came about. Back in the 18th century, this was not a beautifully manicured and shady green space, but rather a wasteland strewn with cowpies and rutted where the students walked to the front entrances. And so some say that the term campus was used mockingly and referred to the fields of Mars, where Roman soldiers drilled. It has also been suggested that President Witherspoon coined the word. This flat field with no enclosure was so different from the city universities he had known in Scotland.
Henry House. In 1829, the College of New Jersey was in a state of turmoil. Students were disengaged and in a perpetual state of conflict with the administration. Vice President John McClain set out to improve the educational experience by hiring new faculty. He brought on Joseph Henry, one of America's leading scientists at the time. Professor Henry made major contributions in the field of electromagnetism, discovering electrical self-inductance. Indeed, the unit of inductance is called the Henry. Professor Henry taught not only physics, but also geology, astronomy, and architecture. In an era of recitation and rote learning, he was a popular hands-on teacher who often integrated experiments into his classes, which was extremely unusual at the time. It is said that Henry once tested a large magnet of his own design by demonstrating that the magnet could lift 3,500 pounds, including 8 students. The magnet can still be seen on the first floor of the physics building, Jadwin Hall. Ever the inventor, Joseph Henry also ran wires between his laboratory and this house, his home, so that he could notify his wife when he would be ready for lunch. Please proceed now to Chancellor Green.
Chancellor Green. Chancellor Green was the College of New Jersey's first freestanding library, built during the tenure of President McCosh. This beautiful structure was designed by William Appleton Potter in High Victorian Gothic and completed in 1873. It is hard to believe, when looking at this ornate octagonal building, that form actually followed function. The librarian occupied a circular desk in the center of the rotunda of this octagon, and was thus able to monitor the stacks which fanned out from the center. At a time before electricity, daylight was maximized through the large arched windows which lit up the stacks. Even the stained glass proved a practical choice, as the colored glass helped to minimize glare. More light pours into the building through a star-shaped skylight, a so-called clerestory lantern. Note the many carvings and details on this building. We especially love the two entrances with little porches and shiny, lathe-turned gray or red granite columns. Take a look at the capitals of the columns, which are carved as stacks of books. When the library was built back in 1873, it boasted space for an astonishing 80,000 books. As the school only had 20,000 volumes at that time, it was thought to have been built for an eternity. Yet within a decade, the collection had already outgrown its new home, prompting calls for a new library. Circle towards East Pyne Hall now. On your right, you will notice the hyphen corridor that connects Chancellor Green and East Pyne.
East Pyne. The year 1896 was a momentous one for the College of New Jersey, as the school celebrated its 150th anniversary, also called a sesquicentennial, one of our favorite words. On this occasion, the College of New Jersey was officially designated a university and renamed Princeton University. In an architectural milestone, the administration decided that all new buildings from then on would be built in the collegiate Gothic style. One of the new buildings was the one in front of you. Commissioned in 1896, Pyne Library, now East Pyne Hall, was designed as a new library that would be big enough for 2 centuries worth of books, or so they thought. Built in red sandstone from Massachusetts, East Pyne provides a stunning example of Gothic architecture. Please note the crenellations, oriel windows, or bay windows, and flat Tudor arches. The building also features elaborate carvings. If you face the arch, with the chapel and John Witherspoon statue behind you, you will glimpse 2 of our favorite details. On each side of the arch, nestled in the ivy-like carvings below the oriel windows, you can see a little stone mason toiling for eternity. Pyne Library, though inspired by the late 15th century style of Cambridge and Oxford, boasted cutting-edge achievements. Enter the courtyard to admire the huge windows which lit up the stacks. In addition, the stack floors were made of iron with glass panels to allow for extra light. With the advent of electricity, tramways and electric elevators were installed to move books quickly, and the staff even had 25 telephones. Please exit the quad, and directly across you will see the chapel.
The chapel. Princeton University Chapel was built with the express purpose of dazzling and inspiring students and to ward off the threat of advancing secularism. Ralph Adams Cram, university architect and expert on the collegiate Gothic, received the commission. Over 3 years, countless craftsmen, woodcarvers, stone cutters, ironmongers, and stained glass artisans labored to build one of the largest university chapels in the world. The chapel was completed in 1928. A few amazing facts about the chapel. It took 100 expert carvers a year to carve the pews in the choir. Even more remarkable is the fact that the wood in the Millbank choir comes from Sherwood Forest. It may be that some of this wood dates back to the time of Robin Hood. The chapel, with its soaring ceilings, has one of the largest expanses of stained glass outside of Europe. The panels, which were designed by 8 artists, depict not only stories from the Bible, but also secular stories, such as the legend of King Arthur. A series of windows shows representatives of important professions: scientists, philosophers, teachers, and lawyers. Interestingly, in one window you will find the Greek god Zeus. Today, the University Chapel is multi-denominational and hosts a variety of religious and ecumenical services. From here, you can also see Firestone Library to your left, which is our next stop.
Firestone Library. Like Chancellor Green, Pyne Library soon became overcrowded. But the Great Depression and then World War II prevented the construction of a new library. As the years went by, anticipated building costs escalated and further delayed the construction of a new library. Firestone Library was finally built in 1948 when a multitude of alumni and friends of the university came together to donate the necessary funds. The building was very controversial because the pared-down Gothic style did not satisfy traditionalists, yet was considered a sham by modernists. However, the open-stack library that provided space for studying and thesis work proved revolutionary and greatly enhanced the university's reputation. Standing in front of the library, we can see a statue by Jacques Lipschitz, Song of the Vowels. We will now head a short distance to the main entrance to McCosh Hall, which is marked Entry A.
McCosh Hall. When Woodrow Wilson became president of Princeton University, academic standards had grown lax. When asked how many students Princeton had, Wilson answered, 10%. Wilson immediately started implementing reforms. He hired young professors, increasing the faculty by 50%, and introduced the so-called preceptorial system, still in place today. This system, based on English tutorial systems, allowed students to study in small discussion groups called precepts. McCosh Hall, where you are standing now, was completed in 1907 and provided much-needed classroom space for this purpose. Also designed in the collegiate Gothic style, McCosh features many fun details, some of them quite modern. Notice the small football runner dashing to the goal line high above the impressive entrance. If you walk around the whole building, you will find many charming and whimsical carvings along the frieze below the crenellations. On a side note, while we usually call these stone carvings gargoyles, they are actually grotesques. The word gargoyles really only refers to water spouts. We will now walk along McCosh Walk, the first of Princeton's named walks, and which honors President McCosh. In addition to his many other achievements, McCosh initiated a program to beautify the campus by stabilizing footpaths and planting trees and lawns. On your left, you will see the Princeton University Art Museum.
The Art Museum. Many of you have likely visited the museum. As you also may know, the university is planning to replace it with a new building to be completed by the end of 2024. You might want to take this opportunity to take a walk around this building to appreciate its history. Around the back, you will see how the architectural style shifts to Italian-inspired Gothic. While this may be a mishmash to some, we enjoy the chance to see history made visible through different architectural styles. The most striking part of the museum at the moment is arguably the sculpture in front. Created by brothers Doug and Mike Starn, this piece, titled Any Body Oddly Propped, was inspired by Princeton's Arboretum-like campus. The Starn's piece is just one of many sculptures displayed throughout campus. The collection was started thanks to an anonymous donor, and the first set of 20 sculptures was installed in 1969 and 1970. Our favorites include Jacques Lipschitz's Song of the Vowels in front of Firestone Library, which we just saw, and Henry Moore's Oval with Points, located between Stanhope Hall and Morrison Hall. We will continue just a few yards on McCosh Walk, stopping before Whig Hall.
Whig Hall. This beautiful white marble building is Whig Hall, one of a pair built to house the school's colonial-era debating societies, the American Whig and Cliosophic Societies. For a long time, these societies anchored student life at Princeton, but as the college added more clubs, sports, and activities, the societies waned in influence. Today, a merged Whig-Clio society remains active and is located in Whig Hall, while Clio Hall houses the graduate school's administrative offices. It is hard not to be impressed by this pair of iconic neoclassical temples with their stunning marble columns. In fact, when these columns were cut at the end of the 19th century, they were said to have been the largest monolithic columns ever cut in the US at the time. The side of Whig Hall contrasts starkly with the classical facade. When the building was gutted by fire in 1969, only a shell remained, with 3 marble walls standing. Modernist architect Charles Gwathmey, who later became known for his renovation and addition to the Guggenheim Museum, was hired, and he inserted the new building into the shell. The lost wall was treated as an open porch through which one can see the interior spaces. This is always particularly impressive in twilight. The renovation was praised as a sculpture within a sculpture and won several prizes. Students were unhappy, however, and disparagingly called it an ant farm. As a result, when Clio Hall required renovations some years later, a much more conservative and less modern approach was chosen. As we walk on, you will see 2 tigers by Bruce Moore between Whig and Clio Halls. Coincidentally, this pair of a male and a female was installed in 1969, the same year that coeducation came to Princeton. Please proceed to Witherspoon Hall.
Witherspoon Hall. Traditionally, many of Princeton's students had come from the South, but after the Civil War, the school had to attract students from other areas. The dormitory Witherspoon Hall was built in 1877 to woo wealthy New Yorkers. The dorm was meant to resemble a gentleman's country residence and was widely considered one of the most beautiful and luxurious dormitories anywhere. The rooms featured wooden paneling, fireplaces, and stained glass windows. The corridors were designed so that servants could bring coals and remove ashes without being seen. There were elevators to haul up trunks. Also, note the many stained glass windows, each row composed of a different shape. We will now proceed slightly downhill to the foot of Blair Arch.
Blair Hall. In the 19th century, this was the western edge of campus, and the dinky train ran right up to the college. In this era, neither Blair Hall nor any of the nearby collegiate Gothic buildings existed. Only Witherspoon Hall, the grand new dormitory, towered over the station. It is sure to have been an impressive sight, multi-storied and multicolored, with its towers and turrets, gables and dormers. Blair Hall was part of the building spree that was catalyzed by the sesquicentennial. It was the first dormitory to be built in the collegiate Gothic style, and is considered one of its finest examples. Blair Hall was built as a wall dormitory that enclosed the campus on its western side and separated it from the railroad station. Students and other visitors arriving on the dinky now mounted the steep set of steps to enter campus through the massive and ornate Blair Arch. Today, Blair Arch is also one of the most popular sites for arch sings by the university's numerous a cappella groups. Please climb the steps toward Campbell Hall.
Campbell Hall. Here at Campbell Hall, we would like to take a moment to admire the espaliered plantings, shrubs and trees trained to climb the walls of this building. These plantings were a signature of Beatrix Farrand, one of the many women who have left an imprint on the university. Beatrix Farrand was born in 1872 and became a renowned landscape architect, although she preferred the term landscape gardener. At Princeton and Yale universities, she was sometimes called the Bushwoman. She started her work in Princeton in 1912 when she was commissioned to design the grounds at the graduate college. She continued working here for 3 decades, leaving an indelible mark on the campus. Born into a wealthy family, Farrand might have chosen a different path, one of marriage and society. When asked why she chose a career instead, she replied, "Society, yes, it is very agreeable, but to live for it and in it entirely, oh, never. This is different. It is work, hard work, and at the same time, it is perpetual pleasure." Please walk through the arch and up the steps to Holder Quadrangle.
Holder Quadrangle. Princeton's Gothic revival is considered to have reached its zenith with the construction of Holder Hall and Tower and adjacent Hamilton and Madison Halls. This complex of dormitories and dining rooms was begun in 1908 and built over a period of almost 10 years. You will notice that the walls here were built using a multicolored stone. Since the cost for this complex was daunting, the architects searched for an affordable local stone. They chose Princeton stone, today called argillite, which was quarried just a few blocks away at Ewing and Spruce Streets. The architects closely supervised the configuration of the red, greenish, yellowish, and purple stone to make sure that the final effect was pleasing. They succeeded, and argillite soon became very popular and widely used across campus. Building a school around a rectangular enclosed courtyard, a quadrangle, was first done at the so-called New College in Oxford more than 600 years ago. The idea was to protect the students from enemies and townspeople, and also to keep students out of mischief. Here in Princeton, the quadrangle is only closed off to the town during reunions, to prevent high schoolers from sneaking into the parties. The disconnect between medieval and modern times is especially obvious as we walk through Holder Cloister, a copy of the cloister at New College, Oxford, dating to 1390. Hard to imagine that underneath were installed an engine room, laundry, and the gas ovens of the bakery. We have now reached the end of our tour. As we walk through the cloister, we will exit campus and find ourselves back on Nassau Street. We hope you enjoyed this tour. Turn right if you would like to head back to our starting point, Fitzrandolph Gate and Nassau Hall. Thank you for joining us.